Now that I have the sketches roughly defined, I'll start to extrude, combine the parts, and then add a joint to make the lid function. So I'll begin with the front parts, E on the keyboard for extrude, and I will select all the elements that I want to extrude. So I want these to be open, and this extrude will go, you see the default is out this way, and I want it to be negatives in the T thickness. And then what I find works best for me is to hide the bodies. And as you create these extrudes, the program by default hides the sketches, so you have to go back and unhide it. One note is that this is one way of doing it. These bodies are symmetrical, so I could mirror the body over, but I like to just create it in the sketch. So I'll just create another side. E on the keyboard for extrude. And this time, I want to go the start point from an object. And I want to be at that point. That's the back end of the box. And I want to give it a value of T again. And then I will need to show the body. So it will extrude. And it's going to be a new body. And I can hide these as I go along. So again, it hid the sketch. I have to re-show it. Now I will do the sides. So E on the keyboard for extrude. And I want to select all of these elements, including these little tangent elements here. And this one can be a value of T. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and hide that guy. And I'll do it again. E on the keyboard. Select all the elements. If I miss an element, I can always go back and edit that feature. So from an object, and I'm going to go from this backside. And the distance will be T. And it extruded in the wrong direction, so it will be minus T. I want to keep it within the boundaries. Okay. Now we just need the bottom. So I have to show that sketch again. E on the keyboard. And the bottom will be this primary rectangle. We want to be from an object, and we'll be from the bottom of this slot rectangle. And I could do either T, or I can select to a point. So I can select to this sketch point. And either one of them are fine. And I'll hide that one. Now I want to do the lid. So the lid is where we're going to have some issues, and I'm going to do it incorrectly, and then we'll go back and fix it. So we'll do E on the keyboard for extrude. Select the points to extrude. And this one is here. The lid will be from this point and a value of T, or to this point here. It's a new body. So now we can show the bodies, and we can see that this intersection did not work like it was supposed to. And everything is kind of jumbled up and combined onto each other. So what we'll do is we'll clean up the primary box. I'm going to hide the lid. And we'll clean it up using the combine tool. So combine tool is up here by default, but if you need to find it in the dropdown, it's combine right here. And on the combine tool, we're going to use the cut feature, and we want to make sure that we keep the tooling, because the tooling is actually our parts. So the body to be cut initially is going to be this front, and the tool to cut it will be the sides. We'll select OK. And now if we hide this body, it cut away for our joint. And we can select combine again, or we can right click, and the last command that we used is up in the tab there to use it again. So we'll trim this back body and select the two sides. And then right click, repeat. We want to trim the bottom using all four sides. So now everything has been trimmed away, cut away, and we should have some nice clean joints. The last thing to fix is the top up here. So what I can do is I can select the sketch that generated it here or down here. So I'm going to just double click to edit this sketch. And what it did wrong was this cutout needs to come, it needs to cut out up over to here. So what I can do, I'll delete that. I'll drag this over. And I'm going to bring this line, I'm going to select that point, P on the keyboard to project it. And I want to attach, using the coincident constraint, those points there. This will be cut away and this tab will remain. And that would allow it to float. And you can see that when we use the mirror tool, it updated over here as well. So if we delete these elements, the lines, we have to go back for sure and re-extrude. Since we didn't delete them, there shouldn't be any faults when we go back to update this top. So it automatically updated there. And if we look into it, we have clearance this way, and we do not have clearance this way. So what I'll do is go back into the sketch. It's taking a second to load. There we go. And again, I messed up that constraint, so I can select these constraints, and now it's movable. So I deleted the constraint to this to this line, so I'll need to make it coincident to the line. And I want to be a 64th of an inch off, which is 0.015-ish. That gives me a little bit of clearance for movement of the hinge, and it should update. There we go. A little bit of clearance. And we want this to be tight initially. We can always hand file it later if it's too tight. So next I'll give some little fillets here so that we don't have sharp corners. So F on the keyboard for fillet. And I can do these corners. I'll do these 4. And we'll just do a small fillet value of 1/16 of an inch or so. And I will give fillets to this front so it's a little bit softer as well. It will do a different value, maybe 0.3. With the fillet tool, you don't have to keep creating a new fillet operation. You can come back in and just add here with the plus sign. You can have multiple different values of fillets. And I think that looks pretty good. So what I'll do now is I'm going to convert or create components from these bodies. And it's not necessary. You don't have to do this, but if I want to add joints so I can see the motion and verify that it works, I need to have components. So create all components, and the funky color display is from the inspect tool. This component color cycling toggle, and it helps to kind of see the differences in joints a little bit better when it's not as homogeneous. So once these are components, each of these parts can now move around. If you inadvertently move them, you can bring them back with the revert tool. And so I want to lock the majority of these components together so they don't move. The only one that I want to move is going to be the top. So if I hold Control or Shift, I can select all the components, go right click and ground them. So once they're grounded, they can no longer move. The only one that's not grounded is the top, and it can move. So I will go back to revert. And now I'm going to add a joint, an assembly joint. And I can come up here and select joint, or I can just select J on the keyboard. And so we will select the center of the rectangle and the center of the side component here. So you can do animate. We'll show you that it now can spin in that direction. And now, if I select the joints, I can right click on this revolve joint. And actually, let's take a look at the joint. I kind of went through that fast. So the joint type, I'd been using it earlier, so it automatically snapped to revolve, but there's a whole range of different joints that you can select from. And obviously I want this to spin, so I selected the revolve joint. So if you ever need to change the joints, you can always go back and edit it. Just find it in the drop down on the left-hand side. I'm also going to use this edit joint limit. And I want a minimum maximum. And I believe it's 90 degrees and 360 degrees. And that shows that it stops at the bottom and at the top here. Okay, so now that it's joined, I can verify that it does what I want it to do. And I can always bring it back. I can capture this position or revert it back to the base position. On the next video, I'll show you a strategy for exporting these components to the laser system. So this is a good point to save. And we'll end the video at this point.